What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Ohio Mountain Bike. Today we're going to be doing an upgrade to the sinker. I bought a Fox fork that we're going to be putting on. I already took the old fork off. I'm going to show you how to do this. And it takes maybe 2 specialty tools and a 5mm wrench, depending on what kind of stem you have. So we're going to get right into this. So right off the bat, this is what we have. I've already had this opened. So it came better packaged than this. It had cardboard on either end to protect it. So this is a Fox Float 36. Sorry, a factory Float 36. And it's the Grip 2 version, which means that it has a lot more adjustment than the other versions. So it comes with these protectors on it. We're going to go ahead and pull those off. Here's what we got in the box. We have some volume reducers. We also have a star nut to go up on the inside. We have a manual. It's like a tuning guide, and then the owner's manual. The compression tokens or tuning tokens, those go on the inside and basically adjust the rebound. It came with a Fox sticker as well. So what we're going to do right now is put this crown race on the fork, which is, it's intimidating for somebody to do the first time, but it's really not difficult at all. So we're gonna go ahead and throw all this in here and get this out of the way.
Before we get any further, I'd like to apologize for the video quality. I accidentally deleted all these files, and when I recovered them, they all turned out kinda grainy. I also want to get into the tools that I'm using before I actually use them. On the left is a pipe cutter. You'll see what I use that for here in a minute. Then a pencil, and then a tool to set the crown race. After that, 2 Allen keys, a file, and finally, a tool to set the star nut.
So this is one of those things that I will say that you should buy the specialty tool for. This is a specialty tool. I did that. I've changed probably 3 or 4 forks without it, and it is a pain in the butt to do. So this is really simple. I'm going to put a link to this in the description. When you get it, it comes with an adapter to do 1-inch steer tubes. When you get it, unscrew the set screw that's in there because it will scratch your steer tube. So we have the crown race. This side goes up. And you just slide it on there. Get it down until it's firm. Easy peasy. I'm going to use a 1.5-inch side because it is a tapered fork. Just like that, it's flush. Make sure it's seated. There we go. I've done this the kind of wrong way, I guess, with like PVC and screwdrivers and wood. It has never gone that fast. If you have any interest in doing this the right way, in saving time, saving your crown race, saving your fork, get one of these. They're cheap. It's so much easier to use. I'm so glad I bought it. Even if you only do it one time, this is worth the money. So what we're going to be doing here is checking to see how tall we're going to make this fork and how far down we're going to cut the steer tube. That's going to happen every single time. I always drop something as I'm doing this. So this doesn't have to be like perfect. Like this isn't like us putting it on final. I do want to say that while I have done this a handful of times, I am by no means a professional at this. So I may do things differently than you. I may do things differently than you should. So take everything I do kind of with a grain of salt. So I like mine to be a little bit higher. Like that's actually probably about perfect height for me right there. These are all spacers. You can get these on Amazon. They're pretty cheap. You can get unbranded ones. I've got Spank brand ones on there and some unbranded ones. I think some of the ones that came with the bike. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna make a mark, because right there is where we're gonna cut it. So now we have to pull everything back apart again. By the way, if you're doing this, now is a good time to re-grease all your bearings. Make sure everything is good in there. And just generally, like if it needs cleaned, now is a good time to clean it. Get all that gunk out of there. There we go. If you have a fork with a carbon steer tube, which this is not, this is aluminum because I can't afford a carbon fork right now, don't do this. Use a hacksaw. Because what this does is it kind of crushes as it goes around and it will crack carbon. So carbon bars, if you have a fork with a carbon steer tube, don't use these. Aluminum, steel, just fine. That's just fine to do. But you will have a little bit of cleanup. So here is that mark that I made. I'm going to go just a little bit under that, because when I made that mark, it was just a little bit over the stem, and I want this to sit about 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters below the top of the stem. So we're going to go just a little bit below that. All you have to do, you can get these at Home Depot, by the way, for like 10 bucks. Tighten it just enough to get it firm on there. Go around it a couple times, super easy. Quarter turn until it's tight again. Like you don't have to go crazy with it. And just keep doing that. And you can see it's starting to make a cut. You just keep going. Sometimes I like to go the other way too. We're almost through now. Hear that? There it is. So, the reason I said that you're going to have a little bit extra cleanup is that doing that creates these burrs on here, which can and will cut you, so be careful doing that. That's not good for your stem. So what you'll need is a file. Again, Home Depot, 10 bucks. Just kind of, I'm going to take this handle off. You just kind of go in like that. Kind of go towards the middle. Because the reason I'm going towards the middle is so everything kind of falls through there and doesn't fall down here on the stanchions, because we don't want that. We don't want metal shavings on the stanchions, because then they get into these rubber O-rings and that's bad. So now I'm going to take, this is a half round file. You can see because it's half round. I'm going to take that, kind of hit the inside of it a little bit, just to get rid of those burrs. Clean up the outside a little bit, because we don't want any burrs. Nice and smooth. That's what we're looking for. And that little bit of cleanup will save your stem. Now what I'm going to do, and this is where I always find that putting this together is a little bit tedious, because you have to put things on, take them back off, put them on, take them back off. So now we're going to check and make sure, I'm gonna slide this down like that. So if you got one of these lock rings, or if you have one of these split rings, make sure that it goes to the side when you put it in there. I believe that has to do with forces. I'm not, like the force on it or something, compression. I'm not 100% sure, but that is something that I read, and I believe a King Creek headset manual. And so all I'm doing here, so I'm not trying to make it look pretty or anything, because I'll do that after. I just want to make sure that I cut it to the appropriate length. So those are all my spacers. I'll probably end up buying more spacers to take up some of the slack that those small ones have. If I can get this handlebar around right. Okay, so if you can see there, that's sitting just below the lip of the stem here. So that should be okay. That's why I cut a little bit low. That should be okay. Worst case scenario, I can take a little bit more off of it if I can't get everything to compress in there right. So we're gonna go ahead and take this back apart and then set the star nut. So this is the other tool that you absolutely need if you're gonna do this, because it is just too much of a pain, too much of a hassle to try to set that star nut without it. I'm gonna show you how this works. So this is really, really easy. All you do, because it goes in like this, so you screw that on there. Oop. Put it in backwards. Screw that on there like that. And then set that in there. Push it all the way up like that. So now the star nut is sitting inside there. And what we're gonna do, and this does not take a lot of force. It's really, really easy to do. You set it on there just like that. Just that easy. Then all you have to do is take a mallet, and I use the plastic side, you can use the rubber side. Don't use a metal hammer. Just take it down until it's flush. Easy peasy. So now, pull that off. Unthread that. And your star nut is now down inside there where it should be. And the big thing is that it's straight. Because if you try to do that on your own without this tool, it's going to be all crooked and it's not going to go in correctly. So now we're going to put everything back together. This is the bottom bearing that came off when I took the old fork off. We're just making sure everything gets back on there the way it was. There we go. Top bearing, an expansion thing. I don't even really know what that's called. Everything is in there nice. Make sure you don't pinch any hoses, tubes, anything like that, cables. So this goes down over top of that. I want to make sure that's nice and lined up. Nice and pretty. Now is when I'm going to actually make sure that these look good. Make sure that they are nice, lined up, because there's two different types, there's two different finishes. So I want to make sure that all the finishes line up. Make sure that everything is lined up the way I need it to be, so it looks nice and pretty. And then we get to put the bars back on. All right. So something that makes this way easier is if you try to set up your bars, so all you have to do is flip them forward and they go back on. This is the first time I've been able to manage to do that. So everything on this bike is really easy to put together. My old bike, I have sat there and struggled and struggled and struggled to do something like this. Okay, that's on. We've got our headset cap. And then we just need a 5mm hex key. I buy all my hex keys from Harbor Freight because I lose them constantly. What we're going to do is we're going to tighten this down pretty good. We're going to tighten it down pretty good first because it'll preload all these bearings so that everything is tight and where it needs to be. Because if you don't do that and your steer tube is loose in there, okay, that fit in there really good. If your steer tube is loose in there, what it'll do is ovalize your head tube, which is this part. We're going to tighten that down pretty good. And you don't want to over tighten it. You want to be able to steer really freely, because if you over tighten it, it'll crush those bearings and it's just not that good. It'll also make your steering very tight. And you don't want your steering to go really stiff when you're riding. And all we have to do at this point is tighten down, and we want to do this evenly. Our stem bolts, make sure that everything is lined up. So if you notice, I'm running my front brake on my right hand side, which is, I've heard it called Euro style, I've heard it called Moto style. It's just the way I prefer it. I ride motorcycles, so that's where I'm used to having my brake. Because before, on the trails, I would go to grab my front brake on my right side because that's where it is on my motorcycle, and I ended up grabbing my back brake and slide out. So I decided to do the switch over very early on, and it's been great for me since. Now all we have left to do is a little bit of cable routing and getting the brake back on. The bike came with this. All it is you put the cable in there, or the hose, I'm sorry, you put the hose in there and it connects it to the frame. So all we're gonna do is snap this on this hose like that. It's on there. And then it comes with this tiniest little screw. That is the tiniest little Allen key. Then all we're going to do is screw it in. And what that's going to do is hold this hose nice and tight up to this fork. So it's not flopping around, getting into your spokes, causing issues. Because that's not what we want. And then I always route, and you should too, I always route my brake around through the inside so it doesn't catch on anything and rep out. These are Shimano MT500 brakes. These came on this bike. And you can see I got a little piece of cardboard in there because I misplaced the spacer for that so it doesn't lock up on me. And on this little bracket, it'll say up. So that's the side we want facing up. Now, something to notice is that one of these bolts is longer than the other. So you want to have good bite to get in there. So this one's longer and it goes on the top. This one's shorter because it's got a smaller block to go through. That one goes on the bottom. I'll be doing a video more than likely soon on how to bleed these brakes because I am putting new pads on them because I accidentally got some brake fluid on them. Okay. I'm not too worried about how they're lined up right now because I'm going to take them back off to do that pad change. Ideally, if I were to put these back on and like be riding today, I'd have the front wheel on right now and lining it up that way. There we go. And I'm just putting those finger tight because again, I'm going to be pulling these back off. So this is how to change a fork. Like I said, I'm not a professional. Take everything I've done here with a grain of salt. Look up Park Tool on YouTube. They can show you probably a lot better than I can. But this is how I do it. I've done it a lot of times because I do things wrong a lot. So this time, I actually did this one right. It's on there and it works. But like I said, make sure you check with better people than me. But I do hope that you can see that this was not difficult to do. If I can do it, really anybody can. The only tools I used were those two specialty tools I told you about to set the crown race and to set that star nut. The only other tool I used was a little Allen key for this, 5mm Allen key for this. And they both came in the same set that I got from Harbor Freight for like 10 bucks. So there's really no reason why anybody couldn't do this. I've got the tools I use today combined with the cutter, the Allen keys, the two tools to set, maybe 50 to 60 bucks, especially if you wait for a sale to get some stuff. And with Christmas coming up, now would be a good time to ask for some of those tools as stocking stuffers. I'll post a link to this fork in the description if you would like to learn more about it. It's a really cool fork. I'm really glad I got it. If you have any questions about what I did, leave me a comment below. If you like this kind of video, please subscribe so you get notified when I make a new one. And make sure to give this a thumbs up so I know that you've seen it. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.